What if time capsules didn't just preserve the past, but actually predicted the future? Well, it's a fun thought, but we can't say for sure. From missing artifacts that should have been inside, to capsules that were found completely empty, there's plenty of mystery to go around. Could time capsules actually contain more than just relics from history? What if they offer us hints about what's to come, or predictions about the world we live in today? 1. Time capsule or time traveler's miss. So, you might have heard the wild rumor going around. This dusty old time capsule, buried beneath the controversial Robert E. Lee statue, supposedly predicted today's events in uncanny detail. Let's just say, not quite. The reality is way less spooky and a lot more ordinary, but it still raises a few eyebrows. When the capsule was opened in December 2021, people expected a trove of historical treasures, about 60 items, including a rumored picture of Lincoln in his coffin. Instead, the capsule revealed a pretty modest collection: an 1875 almanac, a pamphlet, a cloth envelope, and a silver coin. Not exactly the crystal ball into our future that some had imagined, right? But here's the catch. These objects aren't from just any era. They date all the way back to over 130 years ago, around 1875, and reflect the interests and life of people from that specific time. But there was no cryptic message predicting social media, no prophecy about TikTok trends, and definitely no forecast for climate change. So, where's the juicy stuff? Turns out the missing items are likely lost in time. Or maybe they're simply not where we're looking. It's possible we haven't found all the pieces yet. After all, the capsule that was dug up wasn't the one they were originally searching for. Some even suspect there might be a second, more significant capsule still buried somewhere, containing the missing 60 items. It's a theory that gets tossed around every so often, especially considering how weird it was that the uncovered capsule didn't meet expectations. But let's zoom out for a sec. The items in the capsule were all about 19th century Virginia. The almanac wasn't predicting anything for today's world. It was just a record of weather and events from the year 1875. The pamphlet and silver coin offered a glimpse into the interests of people from a century ago. Nothing prophetic. If anything, the capsule serves as a snapshot of life back then, not a prediction of ours. The mystery and speculation grew over the years because time capsules by nature spark our imagination. We want them to hold secrets and reveal hidden truths, but they often don't. So, the expectation that this capsule would predict future events is more the result of years of hype than reality. At the end of the day, the capsule isn't a fortune teller's guide to today's world. It's a peek into the past, offering a snapshot of what mattered to people in 1875. Nothing supernatural, just a collection of things they thought were important in their time. And maybe, just maybe, there's another capsule out there that will give us those mysterious predictions. Or maybe we're just looking in the wrong place. If you're loving these discoveries and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. 2. Time travelers from the past. It's 1795, and two of the most famous names from the American Revolution, Paul Revere and Samuel Adams, decide to stash a time capsule inside the Massachusetts State House. Fast forward 220 years. Yes, 220. You read that right. And suddenly, the world gets a peek inside their secret stash of goodies. Talk about a time capsule. This one's a full-blown historical treasure chest. When the capsule was finally unearthed, there was a major wow moment. Inside, a silver plate believed to have been engraved by none other than Paul Revere himself. Yep, the same guy who galloped through the night, warning everyone that the British were coming. Imagine holding something that he actually touched. It's like shaking hands with history. But wait, the surprises didn't stop there. Along with the plate, they found a seal of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and a shilling. Think vintage coin. It's like these guys were trying to give the future a snapshot of their world, right at the birth of the nation. How cool is that? And of course, the descendants of Paul Revere got to see these relics. And you can bet they were all sorts of blown away by this unexpected brush with family history. So no, it wasn't a capsule with futuristic gadgets or a warning about TikTok dances. But what it did hold was a direct link to the men who helped shape the U.S. Just imagine what was going through Revere and Adams' minds as they carefully tucked these items away. Maybe they were thinking, future generations are going to love this. Spoiler, they totally did. In the end, this discovery isn't just about the stuff they found. It's about how a simple box of old-timey objects can make you feel a little more connected to those wild days of revolution. So yeah, Revere and Adams didn't exactly predict Instagram, but they sure gave us a glimpse into their world that we'll never forget. 3. A time capsule from 1976. Imagine burying a time capsule in 1976, right in the middle of the bicentennial celebrations, when Gerald Ford was president, Jaws was the movie everyone was talking about, and Apple was just a newborn tech company. That's exactly what one man did. Fast forward to 2013, and the man returned to his childhood home in a Los Angeles neighborhood to dig up his capsule just before demolition crews arrived to make way for new homes. Talk about a time crunch. When he first buried the capsule, he must have thought it'd be a breeze to unearth later. But nope, turns out he sealed that bad boy up real well. It wasn't until he put in some elbow grease that the lid finally gave way, and there it was, his carefully hidden treasure trove of 1976 goodies. The man even joked about how much more securely he buried it than he had planned. Oops. So, what did the time capsule contain? A quirky assortment of things, naturally. There were the classic relics you'd expect, like newspapers from that year, yes, even a Wall Street Journal, and a TV guide, because, well, it was 1976. But then, there were the surprises. A sock, a list of what was fashionable back then, and even a tape with interviews of people talking about their views of the world at the time. Could you imagine hearing the voices of 1976? Those raw, unfiltered opinions must have been something. There was even a note inside stating that the capsule should be opened in 2076. So, of course, if it was opened sooner, it should be immediately reburied. Whoops, guess someone didn't take that part too seriously. But hey, maybe we should be a little less hasty next time, and let the real future generations get their hands on it. All in all, this time capsule wasn't just a random pile of junk, it was a quirky little piece of history, a time capsule packed with actual 1976 flavor. 4. A time capsule from 1995. Ever wonder what people from the 90s thought the world would look like today? Well, wonder no more. A time capsule buried in 1995 at the Orange County Courthouse has just been unearthed, and it's like opening a window into a totally different world. Inside, a mix of newspapers, photos, and bold predictions about what the year 2020 would hold. Spoiler, some of them are hilariously off the mark. Take Joanne Neidiger, for example. She was 60 years old back in '95 and won a writing contest with her vision of the future. One of her big ideas? A monorail system running all over Orlando. While that didn't exactly happen, Orlando's got Sunrail and a constantly expanding I-4. Close enough, right? It's not quite the monorail dream, but hey, progress is progress. Then there's the former mayor Linda Chapin, who also contributed her future predictions. She dreamed of a light rail connecting the airport to downtown Orlando. While that one's still a work in progress, the foundation for better transportation is already in motion, with all those I-4 upgrades and transportation developments in the area. The time capsule didn't just hold predictions and dreams, it also featured commemorative items like badges and keepsakes from the sheriff's office, documenting the community's shared history. And, in case you were wondering, former Orlando Police Captain Jerry Demings was part of this little piece of history too. He shared some reflections on the county's booming population, which has nearly doubled since 1995. If that doesn't make you feel old, we don't know what will. Now, if you're itching to see these nostalgic treasures up close, you're in luck. The contents of this time capsule are being put on display at the Orange County Regional History Center. It's a chance to revisit the past and marvel at how far we've come, or at least laugh at the things we got wrong. 5. The Mystery of the Empty Time Capsule at West Point. Talk about building up expectations only to hit a major letdown. A treasure chest, thought to be a 200-year-old time capsule, was unearthed on the grounds of West Point, New York. Exciting, right? The box, nestled next to an 1829 statue of a Revolutionary War hero, was buried under a lot of hype as part of renovation work on the campus. Experts were buzzing. Historians were called in. X-rays couldn't reveal what was inside, so the mystery was all the more tantalizing. But when they finally cracked it open, nothing. Zilch. Nada. A total bust. West Point archaeologist Paul Hudson, who had spent plenty of time hyping up the find, summed it up best. That was the last outcome I expected. It's hard to blame him. After all, when you find a lead box sealed up tight for nearly 2 centuries, you expect at least a little something inside. It gets even more interesting when you think about how well the box was constructed. Made of lead with sealed seams, it looked like it was built to preserve whatever it was meant to protect. Experts theorize that whatever might have been inside could have disappeared over time, maybe even due to the quality of the seal. Could it have been something organic that just faded away? Or maybe it's all part of the mystery. 6. Wayne County's 1878 time capsule. In a story that feels ripped straight from a historical adventure novel, Wayne County, Ohio, recently unveiled its very own 1878 time capsule. Buried deep within a stone crypt at the Wayne County Courthouse, this copper treasure was accidentally discovered during a building restoration project and immediately became the talk of the town. Weighing in at 20 pounds and tightly sealed for almost 140 years, this box had everyone from historians to locals eagerly awaiting the moment of truth. What could possibly be inside? The excitement was palpable. Just last week, a standing room only crowd gathered in Judge Mark Weiss's courtroom for what promised to be a monumental reveal. But before the ceremony could even begin, there was the small task of actually opening the box. And, as you might imagine, that wasn't going to be easy. Enter Jim Womalink, vice president of Cleveland-based WR Restoration. Armed with tools ranging from a Dremel tool to, eventually, hammers and chisels, Womalink began the delicate work of slicing through the box's heavy soldering, inch by painstaking inch. By the time the big moment rolled around, it looked like he might need a sledgehammer, or maybe a jackhammer. Despite all the suspense, when the moment finally arrived, the box was revealed, still sealed and tucked away in its protective copper casing. In a ceremonial flourish, Masons from Worcester Zevon Easy Lodge 33 presented the time capsule, proudly parading it into the courtroom in full dress regalia. It was a moment steeped in tradition, with the Masons playing an instrumental role in the creation of time capsules across the nation for over 2 centuries. Then came the big reveal. What was inside? Well, let's just say the contents weren't exactly as pristine as hoped. Mallory Haas, a Cleveland-based archaeologist who had been entrusted with handling the artifacts, was optimistic that everything would be in perfect condition. Sadly, that wasn't the case. Many items were damp, with some, like a collection of photographs of county officials from 1878, stuck together due to moisture. The good news? No items were ruined beyond repair. Haas suggested months of dehumidification might save the photographs, which, with any luck, will soon be able to tell their story once again. After the unveiling, the public was invited to walk around the table, snapping photos and admiring the remnants of the past. The county commissioners also took the opportunity to announce their plans for a new time capsule, one that will be buried during the rededication of the courthouse later this year. They're already brainstorming ideas about what modern-day treasures should be included, with hopes of giving future generations a peek into 2024. 7. A peek into NYC's past. Imagine being the lucky person who gets to open a time capsule that's been locked away for 100 years. Well, that's exactly what happened this week when New Yorkers cracked open a capsule that had been resting in the New York Historical Society since 1914. Unlike some time capsules buried deep underground, this one had been kept in a pretty safe spot, so when it was finally opened, the contents were in surprisingly good shape. Inside, historians discovered a bunch of fascinating items, medals, books, and dozens of documents. But wait, one of the biggest finds? A letter that dates all the way back to 1774, from the pre-revolutionary days. Yep, we're talking about really old school stuff here. This wasn't just any random letter either. It was thought to be from the revolutionary days, connecting New Yorkers today with those pivotal moments in history. You know, no big deal, just a casual connection to the people who were once literally fighting for freedom. So, who packed this time capsule anyway? It was the Lower Wall Street Businessmen's Association, who were hoping to make their mark on history. These folks weren't just your average businessmen. They saw themselves as important figures, not only as merchants, but as descendants of revolutionaries and philanthropists. Some of the documents found inside even came from loyalists, while others were signed by patriots. Definitely a mix of opinions in there. Talk about a snapshot of the times. But here's the twist. Just when you think it's all about the past, the focus quickly shifted to the future. What went into the new time capsule? Students. Yep. Young historians selected what they felt best represented their daily lives. We're not talking about flashy items, just the real everyday stuff, like what people eat, drink, wear, and how they get around. It's like giving future generations a backstage pass to what we considered normal. And guess what? This time capsule won't be opened until 2114, so these students are basically creating a surprise gift for people way down the road. The suspense is already building. Now, if you're thinking, wow, this sounds like a lot of pressure to get right, well, you're not alone. These students know that what seems mundane to us now might be the mind-blowing artifacts of tomorrow. As for the original time time capsule, it was supposed to be opened way back in 1974, but plot twist, it didn't get opened until 2014, after spending years safely tucked away at an art storage site. Better late than never, right? 8. Baltimore's century-old secret. Imagine this. It's 2014. You're doing a routine job, maybe checking some old walls, and boom, you find something that hasn't seen the light of day in 100 years. That's exactly what happened in Baltimore when contractors working on the Washington Monument uncovered a secret that had been hidden behind a plaque since 1915. It's like opening a time capsule, but with way more surprises than you'd ever expect. So here's how it went down. George, the contractor, was just checking the stability of a wall behind a plaque that commemorates the monument's centennial. He pulls back the plaque, sticks his hand behind it, and bam! He finds a sealed copper box. A literal time capsule, tucked away by someone over a century ago, just waiting to be discovered. What a plot twist. George even snapped a photo, sent it off with the caption, "The mystery awaits." And suddenly, the whole project took on a whole new vibe. Now, what's inside this time capsule? Well, nobody knows for sure yet, but according to an article from 1915, it's probably packed with a few commemorative programs and local newspapers from that era. Talk about a window into the past. It's like someone from 1915 said, "We need to leave something behind so future generations can know what life was like back then." And hey, they nailed it. It's not just about what's inside the box. It's the fact that this piece of history has survived for a century, tucked behind a plaque, totally unnoticed. Who else can say they've been keeping a secret that long? Of course, there's a bit of concern that water damage might have taken a toll on some of the contents. After all, it's been sitting there for 100 years, so the condition of those newspaper clippings might be a little, well, crispy. But still, who cares? And the fun doesn't stop there. With the monument's restoration still underway, there's talk of creating a brand new time capsule. I mean, could you imagine? Future generations might be finding our secrets in another 100 years. What will they think when they open up our box? 9. A 118-year-old time capsule. Just when you thought 2023 couldn't get any more thrilling, the Marion Fire Department unearthed a century-old secret that's nothing short of epic. While working on renovations at an old fire station, the team stumbled upon a time capsule that had been buried for 118 years. Inside, a treasure trove of history that's straight out of a firefighter's dream. The capsule held newspapers from 1905, giving a glimpse into the world more than a century ago. But it wasn't just the press clippings that stole the show. There were also fire department badges, worn with pride by those early heroes, and even an invitation to the 1878 Volunteer Firemen's Games. If that doesn't make you want to suit up and join the team, we don't know what will. Now these relics of the past are being carefully preserved by the Marion County Historical Society. So if you're in the area, make sure to swing by and take a look. It's a chance to witness firsthand the deep roots of the Marion Fire Department and how far it's come. Plus, you'll probably feel a little bit like you're in an action-packed history movie. 10. Oops, we opened it early. So here's the thing. MIT might have just redefined what getting ahead of the game really means. In a daring, and slightly questionable, move, they cracked open a time capsule that was supposed to remain sealed for a mere 942 more years. The capsule had a note on it saying, "Please don't open until 2957 AD, but MIT researchers, unsure if it was meant as a joke or a serious request, decided to ignore it. And honestly, who can blame them? Time capsules have a way of getting people all excited, and waiting nearly 1,000 years to find out what's inside might be a little too much. Now, this wasn't just any old time capsule. This one was packed into a glass cylinder, sealed tight with argon gas, supposedly to keep its contents safe for the future. What did it hold, you ask? Well, the usual stuff of the time, including documents about science and technology from the year it was sealed, 1957, a few coins from the First National Bank of Boston, and even a keepsake mug from MIT's class of 1957. A little underwhelming, right? No flying cars or futuristic gadgets in sight. But hey, it's still a fascinating snapshot of the past. MIT wasn't the only ones to have a slip-up with time capsules. Back in 2013, a Philadelphia elementary school made headlines for uncovering a time capsule buried in 1968, 155 years earlier than intended. Guess it's just too tempting to resist peeking into a piece of history that's just sitting there, waiting to be explored. This final find might not technically be a time capsule, but it's taking us back in time to 14th century Paris in the most unexpected way. 11. The sarcophagi that survived the flames of Notre Dame. When a fire tore through Notre Dame Cathedral in 2019, it didn't just scorch centuries of history, it accidentally uncovered some buried treasure of its own. Beneath the cathedral, archaeologists discovered 2 lead sarcophagi that had been tucked away for centuries, hiding the remains of individuals who were likely very important in 14th century Paris. Who knew a little fire could unearth so much buried drama? These aren't your run-of-the-mill coffins. Lead was used to keep the bodies as intact as possible, and when archaeologists peered inside using tiny cameras, they found remnants of cloth, hair, and even plant matter, leaves, possibly from boxwood trees, still intact. Talk about a historical preservation win. It's almost like these bodies were put on ice to withstand the ages. While we don't know exactly who was buried in these sarcophagi, yet it's pretty clear that these folks were likely part of the social elite. During medieval times, such elaborate burial methods weren't just for anyone. They were reserved for the big wigs, the high-ranking individuals of Paris, the ones who probably didn't just stroll around the city, but had fancy titles and status. These sarcophagi were more than just a final resting place. They were a statement, a way to preserve both the body and the status of these individuals. This isn't the first time sarcophagi have been uncovered at Notre Dame. In the 19th century, famed architect Viollet-le-Duc unearthed similar lead coffins during renovations, but those were from a more modern era. Nothing as old as these 14th century beauties. The contents of these new finds are still being analyzed, but the fact that the remains are so well preserved already tells us a lot about the time and care put into this burial. As archaeologists carefully inspect the sarcophagi's contents, it's clear that these remains offer a rare look into the social fabric of medieval Paris. What were the burial rituals like? How were the wealthy and potentially powerful individuals of the time laid to rest? These sarcophagi give us a glimpse into an era long gone, offering a unique peek into the city's elite without even having to crack open a dusty old book. And while the fire at Notre Dame was devastating, it did one thing for sure. It unearthed a piece of Paris's hidden past, just waiting to be rediscovered. What else is out there, buried, hidden, or waiting in the shadows to be discovered? How many forgotten treasures, lost histories, and untold stories are just waiting for the right moment to emerge?